Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Mark Di Pasquale. I'm here with Dr. Sean Campbell. This is the Health and Information channel, adjusted chiropractic at One Health and Fitness. And today we're together talking about running styles. And we've got a bit of research that you've been going through. I've got a few personal experiences that I've put myself through. So what have you been finding?
Well, typically when we're looking at running styles, the main thing I focus on is the stride length. So what we find is that people who run with a bit of a longer stride where they're landing on that heel starts to give a lot of problems through the feet. They can get things like plantar fasciitis. You start getting this policeman's heel, you get this pain under the actual heel, and even shin splints. So those sort of lower leg type injuries that you get.
Okay.
What we find is if you actually just shorten people's stride lengths a little bit, is you're landing with more of a forefoot quite stance instead of that heel strike, and yeah, it takes a lot of pressure off the lower leg, reduces a lot of those pains.
Okay. So before we go on from there, we hear a couple of some terminology that people out there might not be used to. So plantar fasciitis might be one. Policeman's heel is another one. So there's a lot of these terms that we'll throw out from time to time. Don't get too confused about those. What we're really talking about is the impact, aren't we? We're talking about the impact that we have as we're running, the impact that basically is coming through the legs, isn't it, up into the body?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah,
it's
okay.
that you actually, as you run, each time your heel hits the ground, that's like a deceleration force. It's actually a stopping force that's putting a jolt up into your leg, which can go right through the knee, the hip, into the low back, and cause problems all the way through that lower limb.
Yeah. So what is it that you see when people come in and they've got issues that they have been maybe doing a little bit of, and I think the important thing would be is there are people out there that do a lot of running, but there are also people out there who might want to start running and never really done it or haven't done it for many years. So what are the things we see for those people who are getting into it? What problems do they have? What challenges and what can we see is going to happen? Or what do people come to you in that position? What are you finding?
All right, well, I think one of the main ones is people who probably haven't ran in a little while, and they want to get back into it, or even people who've never ran and they just want to get started. Quite often they'll do too much too quickly. Doesn't give the body a chance to adjust to these new forces that they're getting through the body. A lot of these tissues that haven't probably been worked in this way, all of a sudden you're putting new stresses, and these can quickly accumulate and build up, and then that's when you start developing this sort of plantar fasciitis, so that pain under the foot, this heel pain, and shin splints is a very common one. It's something I dealt a lot with when I was a kid. I hated running, and that was mostly because of the shin splints I'd get would just cause a lot of pain. And really, I know now that comes down to, that was my running style when I was a kid. Just wasn't very good. I was putting a lot of force in through that heel, a lot of heel strike. I always was told that when I was walking down the hall, it sounded like a herd of elephants coming down. Just because I'd always walk with a lot of heel strike. I actually found when I first got into uni, working in the student clinic down there.
This is a university for your chiropractic degree?
Yeah, absolutely. Once we started getting into the student clinics, I started wearing more dress shoes, so shoes with a little bit of a heel on it. And what I found straight away is when I was walking, because I'd always walk with that heel first position, I started developing that tender point just right under the heel, and that's what we call the policeman's heel there.
Wow. So as you started transitioning up to high heels?
Yes.
Not high heels though.
Yes, exactly. No, it's those dress shoes, that little lift, and it made all the difference. And walking in them every day, I had to change the way I was walking, and within a couple of weeks, completely cleared up after that.
Yeah, great. So, Dr. Sean, what can you say about toe running? What do you know about toe running? Should we be doing it? Should we not be doing it?
Yeah, look, I'm a big fan of the toe running. But again, it's one of those things where if you haven't run like that before, it puts a lot of stress on the calves, particularly on the calves and the Achilles tendon. And really, if you're used to running 10K normally, then once you go into doing some toe running type stuff, really you're only going to be wanting to short bursts of 200 meters, 500 meters, things like that, and build your way up. Because if you were to jump straight into a new technique where you're doing some toe running, then you'll probably find your calves are going to pull up very sore for the first few days, the first few times, and if you keep doing that above levels that your body's used to, then that's when you can start to develop injuries.
Yeah, a few years ago, I remember I was recommended a book called Running with the Kenyans. So it was all about why the Kenyans were such good marathon runners and what is it that they do.
And this is them maybe doing a lot of barefoot running as
Yes.
well.
Yeah, one of the things was they do a lot of barefoot running from a very young age. So the technique is you can't literally run on heels in bare feet. There's too much impact. So you're forced to run on your toes, running bare feet. So I went down to the local oval. I took my runners off and I started doing a few laps toe running or in bare feet. And the next day I was in so much pain. My calves were just screaming, and probably about 4 or 5 days after I couldn't really walk well. And so it was a real shock. It was a real shock to my system. So if we're going to do things like that, probably short snippets.
Yeah.
Do little bits of it over a longer period of time is probably the best way to do it. Okay, so we've spoken about that it's important to narrow, or not to narrow, to shorten our stride length. Okay, not to make it too long, so shorten our stride length. But what about the width of our stride? It's not spoken about too often, or it's not spoken about very much. What is it that you've read about that?
Yeah, well, this is we hear about the shortening the stride length all the time. A lot of people are talking about the length of your stride, but you don't hear about talking about the width. That's something I've come across recently, and there's a few interesting papers that have been released in the last sort of 10 years, discussing the way that people run, how wide they actually have their stance, and what they found is that there's some people who have what they call a crossover gait. Okay. And so what this is as you're running, your feet are actually crossing over a little bit with each step. So if you imagine a straight line that you're following, if you're running down the road, what's actually happening is you're getting this little bit of a crossover where the feet are really lined up and there's not much space between the distance of each foot.
So I'm picturing running down an athletics track, maybe with the lane markers, and we're running down there and we'll have a bit of a crossover of our steps. Okay.
Yeah. And so what they've actually found is in people who run this way, they're measuring the forces on the outside of the knee. Okay. And so we've got this band that runs down the outside of our leg and it attaches into the knee and also attaches up at the hip. And when people get an injury to this area, it's called runner's knee. So it's quite a common injury that occurs in people who run. And what they actually found is people with this crossover gait will actually get a lot higher rates of this injury. And they found that even by moving the gait by about 3 centimeters wider, reduced the stress on this band, on this outside of the knee, by about 20%.
20%, and 3 centimeters is not much.
Yes,
over an inch. It's not much at all.
Yeah, only a little change, but dramatic, because you imagine if you were to run 5K, 10K, how many steps that is. It's a lot of steps, it's a lot of reps. And you think every one of those, you're putting stress through the body, through the knee, stress through this band that runs down the side of the leg. And if you can decrease 20% on every step, that becomes a whole lot and reduces a lot of injury in people.
Wow. Okay, so definitely if anyone wants techniques or their techniques checked or any issues that they're having with running, etc., well, we're well equipped to do that. So that's fantastic. So it's important to decrease the length of our stride, bring the width wider than closer together.
Yeah, well, I will caution that this, as with anything, we're all variable, so every person is different. So I wouldn't just tell every person just to go with a wider stance. But for people who might find they're getting pain on the outside of the knee while they're running, or even people who you can test this yourself. So if you're running down a straight line, you can have a look and see how much of a crossover gait you have. And if you do find that your feet are crossing over by more than a couple of inches with each step, then you might want to consider bringing them out just a few centimeters and seeing if that makes a difference to your running and to the forces on your lower limb.
Fantastic. Okay, so any final advice, recommendations from Adjusted Chiropractic at One Health here today? Anything you want to just tell the viewers?
No, I think anyone who gets pain in the lower leg while running, usually check your heel strike. So if you're getting that heel strike while you're running, it's a really easy one that you can change, and most people will see an improvement with that. easiest way to reduce your heel strike is just to decrease that stride length a little bit. For people who are getting a bit of pain, like a runner's knee type thing through the side of the knee, or even in the hip a little bit, have a look at that that width, and if you've got a bit of a crossover gait, try going that little bit wider. The one thing I will say though is to make sure that if you do change your style of running at all, it's the same with anything. What you want to do is work up to it a little bit. You wouldn't want to just say, if you're used to running 5Ks, you wouldn't go and do a 5K run with this new style all in one hit. You'd want to work through maybe 500 meters with it, then run a couple of K, and then another 500 meters like that, and you just slowly ease it in, increasing it over time, because otherwise you're creating new forces on different areas of the body, and we don't want them to break down.
Yeah, exactly right. And if you're feeling sore after a session or running for the first time particularly, you're not going to want to do it again. So just ease into it is perfect. And I think for those who think that running isn't something that human beings should be doing a lot of, well, there was a study I was reading a while ago, just going back to prehistoric days and just looking at our biomechanics and how we're actually made. And it's actually human beings are the only species that can actually run and continue to keep focus on vision at the same time. So it's about how our upper cervical complex, or how our neck is actually pivoted. So when we're running and our body is bouncing around, we can actually keep our eyes in the same plane, so we can keep a vision on things that we're looking at. And what did they say? Those people said that this was a way that we would actually run down our prey. So many years ago, when we had to hunt to eat, we wouldn't go in short bursts because animals are so much faster than us. We would actually track them over long distances, tie them out, they'd drop down, and we'd actually have them. So interesting theories, but whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. I just find it very interesting. I often think about reading a book while I'm running down the street. Only joking. So any final thoughts?
Nah, that's it from me. I think I've pretty much covered.
Fantastic, awesome session today. Great work on the Hal's channel. So that's all about running. If there's any questions that anyone out there has, definitely give us a call, and we can help you further. Have an awesome day. Get out there and enjoy life.
See you later.